Hey guys, it's Quickie Baby and welcome back to another quick tank review. This time we're looking at the T54E1, which is the Tier 9 American medium with an autoloader. This tank is capable of insane burst damage and it has to be one of the biggest threats at Tier 9. It still has pretty darn good mobility, and if you're looking for a tank that really likes to kick some ass without going down a tank destroyer line, then this may be the one for you. If you have no interest in autoloaders or American medium tanks, stay tuned anyway, and I'll get you up to speed as to how to avoid these tanks devastating you and how to take them out effectively. I've already done quick tank reviews on the previous 3 tanks, the T21, the T71 and the T69, so if you want to see the evolution of the line, think about checking out those videos. And you'll know if you've watched them that the grind to this T54E1 is really not very painful at all. Once you get through the T21, the T71 and the T69 are quite good tanks. And realistically, everyone who's going through the T54E1 has one goal, and that is getting the T57 heavy tank. I've got enough footage to be doing a T57 heavy review soon, so stay tuned, and you'll see what I have to think about possibly one of the most imbalanced tanks in the game. But that's quite enough about the tank surrounding the T54E1. Let's take a look at its stats. Well, it has 1,750 hit points, which is fairly standard for a Tier 9 medium tank. When it's fully equipped, it weighs just shy of 55 tons, and it has an excellent engine, which is also used on the M103. So if you've already researched the M103, then you'll be very happy to hear that the engine is compatible, and you'll get an 810 brake horsepower engine, which is simply awesome. It's also worth noting that the middle tank engine, so to say, is researched on the T29, the T30, or the T32, which means there's a very good chance that you won't have to research either of the engines when you get this tank. One of the things you will have to research, however, is this 105mm, and it will cost you 43,000 experience points. Using the 90mm on the T54E1, it just doesn't quite cut it, and you're probably going to have to fire quite a lot of heat ammunition if you want to penetrate most of the targets that you'll meet. So be prepared that the grind to get the 105mm can be quite painful, as it does feel like you're just playing a slower, larger T69, which is one tier up. Now, the top speed limit of this tank is 43.5 kilometers an hour, which means that it can shift. It's not the fastest of medium tanks, but it still outperforms tanks such as the Centurion 7-1. Now, the traverse speed of this tank is an excellent 46 degrees a second, which means it can quickly re-engage targets that are trying to flank it. And when you combine this with a turret traverse of 36 degrees a second, this is simply not a tank that you can circle strafe, unless you're in a very fast light tank and you're able to take his tracks off and get around him. Now, the armor on this tank on paper is 110mm on the hull armor, with 76 at the side and 35 at the rear, and 127 on the turret front, 69 on the side, and 50 on the rear. Let's take a quick look in World of Tanks Viewer to demystify these numbers. A quick foreword that I have been taking a look at this Tank Inspector program, and it's nice for simulating shots and then seeing what their bounce chances would be, as you can see here. However, at least for now, I'm still going to be using WOT Tank Viewer. So here's our T54E1, and here's the armor thickness. You can see the key down here, which I point your attention to. So when we're facing the T54E1 from the front, it should firstly be noted that the thickest part of any of the armor on this tank is 127. We can see that the lower plate is 61mm thick and it's rather flat. And then there are progressively bands around of 181mm and then 101mm band. And the only place on the hull armor really that you don't want to shoot is the very well angled upper plate, which is the thickest part, 110. So if you're engaging a T54E1, simply aim at its lower plate. If you can see its lower plate, that's your ticket. It's not very well angled and it's quite thin. That's my recommendation. The lower that you can shoot, the better, obviously without risking missing the tank entirely. If you can't see the lower plate and you can only see the upper plate, then I suggest that you shoot the turret. There are a few options for you. You can engage the turret ring, as you see here. There are 2 different thicknesses of the armor, but it's very flat and it's quite easily visible, as we can see here. There is an opportunity to shoot straight through the mantle of the tank, as it is only 127mm thick and it's very flat. However, aiming at this, you really risk him turning his gun, turning his turret, missing the flat surface and then hitting the very well sloped nose of the tank, so to say, around here. Even though the nose of the tank is only 63mm thick, if you're aiming at it front on and it's moving around, you can quite easily miss and then hit here, which will be very, very, very well angled. Most of the bounces that I've seen T54E1s pull off are where they move their turret round and try and get you to shoot on a very well angled surface and hope for a bounce. We can see that these parts in here are very flat indeed, although they are well armored at 127 millimeters, because the well angled normalization on the turret will make it tricky for you to penetrate it. If, for example, you've only got 200 millimeters of penetration with, say, a T29, if you have the sides of the T54E1, really, there's no way that it's going to bounce. If you have the rear, you can penetrate it reliably with HE ammo at the back. The T54E1 has quite a lot of trouble with the side of its turret armor. As you can see here, it's only 63 millimeters thick and it's completely flat. It's also very long, and it's quite annoying because it can stick out round corners if you're turning your turret in an improper fashion. And if you stick the nose of your turret out round corners, they can easily penetrate here and here as well. So we can see that the T54E1's armor is mediocre at best. If you're driving one of these, you really want to keep your front to the enemy and try and keep your turret moving, going backwards and forwards, and hope that he bounces off your upper plate, or he hits one of the very sloped parts of your turret. But now let's look at the thing that really makes up for this. Once you've researched this 105mm, you are absolutely devastating. It has 4 shells in each magazine, and the shot delay is 2.22 seconds. That's a little bit longer than the shot delay on the T69. As you can see here, it was only 2 seconds. However, you've gained quite a lot of penetration with your regular rounds, now at 210mm. And if you elect to fire APCR rounds, then you've got 255mm of penetration. Now you might be thinking, well, it takes me longer to load, and it takes me longer to unload the shells. Then really, what's the benefit? Well, the fact is that the caliber is now so much higher, which means that the alpha damage is a massive 390. This means that you're able to do 1,560 damage now with a clip. And if you roll high, or even get a few engine fires with those shots, then you're able to push it maybe up to 1,700 to even 2,000 with a fire. And that really is the big difference between the T54E1 and the T69. The fact that the T69 is only able to do 960 damage per clip, the T54E1 adds over half to this. And that means that quite often there's more tanks that you can engage and kill within your clip before you have to retreat and reload. Of course, this comes at a cost because it takes longer to reload the shells, but still this tank fires 5.63 rounds a minute, which when we compare it to, for example, the Leopard prototype and the Centurion 7-1, this is about 12% higher DPM than either of those tanks. However, he says, this tank has got 2.9 seconds aim time, which often means that you have to aim for quite a long time at your target, so keep that in mind. And also, because this is an autoloader, this tank is unable to fit a gun rammer, which means that this rate of fire advantage is almost completely negated. So realistically, this thing has got the same DPM as a Centurion 7-1 using the 105 or the Leopard prototype. And because this tank has got 2.9 seconds aim time, I really recommend using vertical stabilizers as well as a gun laying drive. And your aim time isn't any better than the other tier 9 medium tanks. The accuracy on the 105 is also quite poor at 0.4, and really you want your engagements to be close to medium range if you want to reliably penetrate the enemy. Unless you've got their side or their rear, you're really going to struggle to go through equal tiered opponents with your 210mm of penetration. So the T54E1 has its good points and its bad points. These are the final stats, so to say, just before I've done the review on this tank. I played 117 battles, managed to get about a 65% win ratio. My hit ratio in the tank is 86%, which is alright considering the accuracy. I've destroyed quite a lot of enemies with this tank, 247, meaning that's over 2 enemies per game. And due to the 400 meter spotting range, we're also able to spot quite a lot of enemies. Now on average, I do 2,800 damage a game in the T54E1, and I've been averaging 1,127 experience with the premium account. So this thing is definitely a very good performer. I seem to do better in it than I do, for example, in my Centurion 7-1 or my T54. So that's quite enough of the analysis. Let's take a look at how this performs in some gameplay.
Time to roll out.
So here we go, we're playing on Runeberg in the T54E1. This is a very balanced game, 51% chance to win, according to XPM. Now, I like Runeberg for the T54E1. You'll remember in the garage that I said that the medium to short range engagements are where I really like to play with the T54E1. I feel that the rate of fire is not good enough to chance your shots at range, and only having 210mm of penetration means that you can really struggle to get through very heavily armored targets. Now, I've taken my T54E1 down the east because I feel that there's more opportunity to outplay your opponents. I think in the town it's very linear, and unless you've got a lot of armor, which the T54E1 definitely doesn't have, then I feel the west is the best bet for a lightly armored autoloader like this. So we're looking for shots on the T54. And just look at the rate of fire. Boom. Okay, first blood. I'm looking to try and offload my other shell, but I decide, it's not worth it. We'll reload. So you can see just how quickly we were able to put the pressure out on that T54. And even though we only hit 2 shots, we still did 761 damage. We would have had to have hit at least 3, possibly 4 to be able to do that much damage in the T69. What that means is that even though the delay in the shots is longer, using this 105mm than using the 90mm, you do a lot more damage, a lot more quickly. So I'm going after this T71 now. Kind of donked a shot there. I shot after. Here comes the SU-152. Don't really want to take a shot from him. He might be using the 152mm. I don't really want to lose my health right now. So I just decide to reload. So right now we can see that there's a bit of a serious fight going on in the town. I'm just trying to hide my hull armor. The enemy don't have any artillery. And this engagement is not exactly very fast paced. We can see that an M103 has got out of position. I'm just looking down there at him. Can't really help him out though, as I'm locked down by some autoloaders and some tanks with some very high alpha damage. So I decide to move out. Want to get a bit more damage done. So I begin to make a move on this AMX 1390. And there's a tortoise. Absolutely smashed me. I don't really want to take another shot from him. Tortoise has got one of the highest DPMs in the game, and will make my DPM look absolutely trivial in an extended engagement. So now I see there's a T43 down the other flank, but I really want to start to put some pressure out. So secure the kill on the AMX 1390, then look around, see the tortoise wanted to pressure me. I still have 2. I go out, spot the cupola, 1, 2, pull back. Nice and clean. I do have a tortoise review coming up fairly soon as well. I'm finally done with that tank and I've been playing the FE183, which I've been enjoying a lot of. But let's focus in on the T54E1. Now, you might be thinking that I'm quite lucky that I'm able to reload very safely this game. And that's where the T54E1 can become unstuck. If the enemy pressures you during your fairly long reload, a lot longer than the T57 as an example, then they can take you out. However, this guy has let me reload. 1, 2, 3. And that's just a perfect example of this tank, if I'm honest with you. An absolute perfect example of what this tank is good for. And that is blitzing its opponents. That tortoise allowed me to dictate the pace of the combat, and so he just got devastated. Now we're going after this Jagdpanther to help this T34-1 out. Oh, I don't know. That looked like a bit of a kill steal. I honestly thought that he might struggle a little bit, but maybe he could have handled it. So our team seems to be doing fairly well now. And we caused some serious destruction there. We killed the whole of that tortoise, which fed us 2,000 damage. We've managed to pick up 4,300 so far. Now here's that SU-152 that we spotted earlier. Just looking for where he's aiming. He's aiming at the T-34, so I'm going to make my move. We bounce one, and he puts a good shot into us. But I have enough to continue to assault him. Now we're looking for the tortoise. Sorry, the Tiger 2, I should say. And you just see the DPM. Just wrecked that Tiger 2 there. So we could fire one at the SU-152. We didn't penetrate our first shell, but we had enough for the second. Then we still had 2 left to decimate the Tiger 2. And this is where the T54E1 is very strong, cleaning up as well. At the end of the game, maybe you want to try and do a lot of damage so you can get a lot of experience. And the T54E1 definitely excels here. Because you can literally go at an opponent with 4 loaded. If it's that you're trying to clean up and get that last kill, then you can do it. And that's a tier 8 heavy tank, and we just made him look really stupid. So there we go, that was 6,600 damage and 5 kills. To give you a rough idea, that was about a 2,000 experience game with a premium account. But let's move right along and take a look at our next gameplay. So you just got to see a game where I was top tier and dominating quite a lot of tier 7 and 8 and 9 tanks. Now let's take a look to see how the T54E1 does against some tier 10 opponents. Now I'm going up into my favorite position to use in my medium tanks on airfield. Once you spawn at the west side, we can see that Z is trying to dominate the middle of the map in his E50. Now I got spotted there by a sneaky Foch and a 1375. I'm not too fussed about the 1375 because I want to get into position and start decimating my opponents. So we slam one into the Pershing there. I don't think he quite understands. He thinks that we don't have an autoloader, so he's coming back for more. I try to poke out again to penetrate the last, but I decide, hey, let's just reload now. There's no point in trying to poke the last shot. One of the best things that you guys can do in the T54E1 is come out when your opponents are surprised, unload on them, and then when they start to aim at you, you pull back. We can see we're able to pull off a bounce there. Let's just take a quick look to see where the shell actually bounced off. Yep. Looks like it skimmed off my upper plate there. Or is that not the ricochet point? Yep, looks like it went off my upper plate there. Okay, so we've reloaded, and we're coming back out. 1, 2, 3, 4. And I must say that Jagdpanther was very lucky. On average, I should have killed him with only 3 shots, but I had to waste the 4th on him as well, because we rolled for 357, 363, then 393. If we had rolled our average, we would have killed him in 3 and then been able to put another shot into someone else. But we can see just how good this location is. You can reverse, be completely safe from the artillery. Safe from the other opponents as well. And you be the judge. Now those were better rolls. We rolled above our average there and we were able to kill a tier 7 heavy tank in 1 clip. And still have another shot to come and get the Borsig. And we bounced a shot. Let's take a look to see where the shot bounced. Looks like the ricochet was right off the top of the tank. And it looks like a ricochet has also happened on my gun as well. That well-angled part under the gun. So far so good. I'm really showing you what the T54E1 does best. And that's unloading on enemies that are at short to medium ranges that are not interested in engaging it. So I come out. Great. Look for shots there on the 50B, but I can't make them. I decide, is it worth going hunting? He's got 500 health. I need to penetrate both my shots. I have the jump on him. 1, 2. Great. IS-7 was a bit confused as to my positioning there. And I pull back. So far so good. 4,700 damage done. We destroyed a tier 8 and a tier 7 tank in 1 clip. In fact, we took out that tier 7 heavy with only 3 shots. We took him out in about 5 seconds. That's how brutal this tank is. Now I'm going to go hunting for the IS-7. He penetrates a good shot into us. I managed to get round his side. Put one in. That one went into his spaced armor. Don't shoot the spaced armor. So I'm just going to pause there. This is quite important. When you're shooting IS-7s, there is a bar of spaced armor above the tank, and it's very well angled as well. My first shot went into the back. My second shot was poorly aimed into this spaced armor. But then I shot between the tracks and the spaced armor, which was an easy penetration. So I decide to reload instead of going after the ST1. I feel that there's more damage to be done, and quite often I like to reload if I've only got one left rather than try to find a target to put a shot in. And that shows you just how devastating the T54E1 is. That IS-7, the tier 10 heavy tank, fair enough we took a shot going in, but we were almost guaranteed to take him out. We would have had to have donked 2 shots. We would have actually had to have donked 2 shots and failed to penetrate 2. So I've reloaded, going after the AMX-50 Foch now, and an ST1. And this is the kind of position you want to be in the T54E1. Fully loaded with the back of a Foch. Somehow we bounce our first shot. That doesn't matter. We secure the top gun there, taking out a very dangerous tier 10 tank destroyer at the end of the game. So let's take a quick look at some post-game stats. So this was my mastery badge in the T54E1. It happened during a 5x experience event, so we got 10,500 experience for our 5 times. That's 2,100 experience without the 5 times. And we had a pretty good role in the game. We managed to take a pivotal part of the map, use it to assassinate the enemies that were in the open. Didn't get shot too much, and a few shots that we did take, you got to see the troll nature of the well-angled armor of the T54E1. And then towards the end of the game, we used our remaining health to soak up damage and to flank our enemies and to assassinate what we needed. So we got the top gun and the sniper medal with our 6,000 damage in that tier 10 game. We hit 20 out of 21 shots, of which 18 penetrated, and we didn't fire 1 premium round. So that shows you what kind of work you can do with the 210mm penetration regular rounds. We took 6 hits, and of those, only 3 penetrated us. We still had about 600 health left at the end of the game, even though we took 2,200 potential damage. And there you have it. That's the T54E1. It's an opportunistic autoloader with really, really good alpha damage for its tier. And its mobility is also rather good, which allows it to use its gun to great effect. It can outflank heavier tanks, and it can outplay slower tank destroyers. I really do like the T54E1, and I think it is pretty darn powerful. Now, it's not the best tank in every situation. As an example, the E75 would be a better tank for taking out multiple enemies where it needs to really use its armor and side scrape and take them out one by one. As the T54E1 is based around doing a lot of damage to an enemy target, taking it out and then reloading, it really needs to be able to dictate the pace of the combat. I'd say that the T54E1 is probably the best tier 9 medium tank if you just want to do a lot of average damage, you want to get a lot of kills, and you want to get a lot of experience. However, you will have to use your team. You'll have to look for when your friends make engagements, and then swoop in and support them. Engage your enemies one by one, try and avoid multiple engagements. And if you do have multiple engagements, make sure you're able to retreat and reload, or that you severely cripple the enemy so that they don't want to chase you. The T54E1 is an absolute pleasure to play through on the way towards the T57 Heavy, and really the T57 Heavy is just more of the same. So if you don't like the T54E1, you might not want to bother trying to get the T57 Heavy, but if you liked this kind of gameplay that you've seen, then I definitely recommend checking it out. And trust me, when you get the T57 Heavy, you will have no regrets. Anyway guys, I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you have, please consider rating it down below. I'd really appreciate it. And let me know what you think in the comments about the T54E1. Do you think it is ridiculously powerful? How do you think it compares to, for example, against the AMX-50 120? As always, thank you so much for watching. You've been epic, and hopefully I'll see you soon.